Make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None carried. Public forum. Before we get started here.
I'll make a quick statement. On advice of city attorney, as a council member, I will be abstaining and stepping down from the dais for the public forum. And on advice of city attorney, to use my rights as a resident of East Bethel to speak at public forum. I'll be stepping down now.
Okay, once I call your name, you'll be asked to come up here, state your name and address. Please limit your presentations to 3 minutes. If you're here as a group, please just have one person come up so we get through this tonight. So with that said, Brian. Which one? Yes.
Brian Bazanson, 22337 Quincy Street. I was appalled at the attack on BDM, all three versions of BDM, the company, senior, and junior, that happened at the last meeting. I have been a resident here since 1978. I've been involved with city government from some time in the early 90s when I started serving on different committees. I've been on every committee the city has, including the horse committee, which no longer exists, and other ones. I have made a commitment to good government, in my opinion, in East Bethel. My comments are written out on yellow paper rather than having them be typed out and submitted from a ghost writer. That's a pun. Some people get it. Menard Lake Estates is the issue. The history in that area goes back long before I was a resident here. I have been told, and I believe that the history will prove correct, that the city was proceeding down a development path on it with someone up there. They decided that the city decided they didn't want to continue down that path. The developer had incurred some costs. They sued. They won. The court ordered the development to come in, for the city to approve the development, and the city sold the bonds that that place was financed on. I was present on the council when the city took possession of it because it had gone tax forfeit. So if we hadn't taken it over, we would be making payments on a piece of property that we wouldn't own, someone else would have the rights to it, etc. It was just a bad deal. I think it was long before Matt was on the county board. Anoka County basically cut us a deal, and for the back taxes, we got it back. I believe that's what the record will show. I'm sure someone can do research on that, but that's the way I recall it. We had to buy out 4 to 6 residents so that we could have their modular homes removed because, again, the city did not want to be a landlord. And the important thing about this is at the time, I'm going to use rough numbers. I've tried to find out exactly how much it is, but as Mr. Look explained earlier today, this evening, things have not been digitalized. That'd be a great investment, in my opinion, Matt. Very good, because the way what I have been told and trying to do further research, you went back to like 2006 is what's been digitalized, and anything before that is just paper copies, and so.
I think it's 23,
Whatever.
but yeah.
The city budget at that time was $1 million. I thought that was real money back then when I was 40-some years old. Of that $1 million, and that's again a rough number, 20% of it, in other words, $200,000 went to pay the bonds on Menard Lake Estates. There was a building there. The building that is the cause of all of this hullabaloo. I believe it was built, and I may be proven wrong, but state statute has that for modular trailer house type communities, they have to have a storm shelter. It was a storm shelter with a bermed exterior. There was an extensive amount of work that was done so far as being able to bring it up to a presentable shape. The other thing was, there was a lot of back and forth between BDM and the city of East Bethel. I was not part of that back and forth because I had not filed for a council seat. I had had enough. So I was a lame duck council member. But I believe that contract that is up in the air right now, or that is being disputed, was written by the city attorney. Obviously, it wasn't the present firm, but I do know it was Randall, Dean, and Goodrich, because Jerry Randall was the city attorney, and I got to sit right next to him. Anyone who casually states they break contracts all the time is either a liar or a fool. Lawyers tell you that you have to have 3 conditions to have a contract. You have to have a meeting of the minds, an agreement on terms is the meeting of the minds, an exchange of goods or services, and valid consideration has to be exchanged. I did spend 1 semester at Billy Mitchell. The only thing I paid attention to was contract law. The city administrator has suggested that we revisit this contract. Why would BDM do that after being smeared in half-truths and funny money accounting? I'd like to see a spreadsheet how your ghostwriter came up with those figures. If you did them, Tim, you should have that spreadsheet yourself. You'll be able to produce it. But we know who wrote that. Accounting and misrepresentation of state statute, and that's citing all of the law, has happened. When you read the state statute that pertains to gifts, a father can gift his son even though he's a public official, as long as it's not on a voting issue. When you read it, it's there.
Brian, please try and wrap it up.
Pardon, Joe?
Please try and wrap it up so we got all the
Okay.
people in line.
I was a construction superintendent all my life, essentially. Job site lawyers pick and choose from their division of all trades, but all trades are subject to Division 1. That same thing applies in here, that you have to look at the entire body of the contract. What I was referring to was in a spec book. I hope the city council has not been backed into a corner on this issue and goes to court. If so, I believe that the city will lose. I also think that if they go to court and they lose, the council members that vote for going to court after the city loses, have demonstrated extremely poor judgment and due diligence for the city. To continue with a social media attack, in my mind,
Time.
I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about your ghostwriter. Come on, you know, we know, Tim, he's told me he writes the stuff for you.
He hasn't written a thing for me in 2 years. 2 years. And that's your opinion, which is fine.
I don't belong to social media because I think it's a pox on society.
Brian, we need to move on.
Okay.
Time.
You're done.
I think you ought to, yeah, go ahead and sue BDM, see what happens. At the very least, you should commit to arbitration beforehand. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Matt, no, it's been outside. Wait, really.
It's Matt Dwyer, live on Polk Street there in the community of this situation and topic. Similarly to him, appalled. Also, I don't have yellow, I got white paper. But as it states now, we are being hurried along, and it's clear we're not going to get much questions answered. So I would request that we put this on an agenda, have a specific meeting set aside where everybody can bring that information, be as transparent as they're claiming to be, and everything can be put in the open. Everybody's here to talk about this, and if we get 3 minutes or to follow the mayor's request, get everybody in the group and have one person talk, we're not going to get anything done. I have very pointed and accurate questions that I want to ask, and they would require you guys to look at your resources and information that you have. So I would request that this be put on an agenda, unfortunately moved to another day, but let's get this on the books so we can talk about this. Everything I have right here, I can wait. I'll let somebody else come in, speak their piece.
All right, thank you. Is it Ram or? Yeah.
Good evening, folks. I'm Ram. I live here. I'm a resident of City East Bethel. I ran for city council, 2-3 years ago. For me, I got the same issues. The attack, the lies, where's the transparency? And that's coming from the opponents that ran against me when I ran, and you guys are sitting up there now. So if you guys want to be transparent with all the citizens that are sitting in here and the ones that are watching from home, go ahead, open up the books, give us all an accountant for the money that BDM has paid the city, where it's at, what accounts it's sitting in, where's all the interest at. And I'll second what Matt said too. Move this on its own agenda for another city council meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Mark Gimple.
Mayor, council, I'm gonna ask the attorney to read what I have here. This is a heated subject for me, and I don't want it to get out of hand. So I would like him to present this to you, and if he can, and I will stand for questions or a follow-up if we can do that.
Mayor, is that acceptable?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I have in front of me are two documents handed to me by Mark Gimple that he has asked to be read as part of the public forum. First document is captioned complaint form dated June 9th, 2025. Complaint regarding Matt Look, City Administrator. Described complaint is as follows: May 12th work meeting and May 28th City Council meeting where Mr. Look didn't provide all the information on our 6-horse IUP. The information he did provide was misleading. The name on the complaint is Mark Gimbel, signed by Mr. Gimbel, and has phone number, email, and address. Second document, captioned the same date, complaint regarding Mayor Artie Anderson. This one actually has a section of city code being violated filled in. The prior complaint form did not have that particular category filled in, and the section of city code being violated is Robert's Rules of Order. Described complaint. Robert's Rules of Order ensures meetings are fair, efficient, and orderly, protecting the rights of all members, and Mayor Anderson is failing to do that. Again, Mark Gimbel has signed it and filled in the rest of the blanks. Those are the 2 documents that were handed to me to read into the record.
Any questions? Just to follow up there, I am presenting them to the attorney. That's not the normal process. I realize that. The Gimpels in question here with this IUP have very much mistrust in the city and this council at this point. I just wanted that on record to have that documented so it doesn't get lost or misplaced along the line.
Mr. Gimpel, it's part of the record.
Thank you. I have great concerns on Mr. Look and the information that he is providing council. It's misleading information. We're kind of at odds with Mr. Look at this point, and our opinion is that he's not doing his job to the best of his ability. He's not providing the council with accurate information on the subjects at hand, and I feel great concern about that. If the council was presented with the information at his access, this IUP issue should go away. There should be no disputing it. We have an IUP for 6 horses still today, and he is not providing this council with proof that it does not exist. We have provided council with proof it exists, and yet your ruling was to pull that IUP from us. That is very disheartening to a resident and a business owner in this city. It's heartbreaking. We voted you guys into this position to look out for my rights, my well-being, and yours. We're paying Mr. Look a lot of money to give you the right information to do your jobs correctly, and he's not doing that. He's withholding information from us, the residents, to prove our case to you guys. And it like I said, it's disheartening at the very least. And as far as with the mayor, there's rules, and I have rights as a resident to be part of a controlled meeting. That meeting of the 28th was no less than a fiasco. And I would actually like to thank Councilmember Mundell for trying to bring some order back to that meeting. No one else, any one of you, and if I'm not mistaken, the Robert Rules of Order, there's a procedure and a place for all of that. No, any of you could step in at any time and try to stop that chaos. And if we do not have common knowledge of those rules, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the city attorney is kind of the go-to person for questions as far as those Robert's rules of, am I right or wrong?
Mayor?
This is a public forum, you're addressing us.
Okay. If, I would suggest the council to go over the rules that the city is supposed to be run by. And if any of you can say that that night was run by those rules, I will have issue with that. And I think you will not argue with me. So, to wrap it up, I thank you for your time, and we will be heard from more in the future here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Sarah?
Hi, guys. Well, I didn't get the invite for all of these guys, but hopefully I'll break up the kind of mood here for a second. First, Sarah McLaughlin, 1148 231st Lane, Northeast East Bethel. I want to first thank you, actually, surprise, guys, here we go. I'm gonna thank the council members here to have this public forum, because without this, I know that my situation with my neighbor would have never been taken care of. I want to thank the Anoka County Sheriff's Department for continuously monitoring our neighborhood and removing the people that were staying there and trespassing now. They are actively removing them, so thank you very much for that. A big shout out to the fire department, because without them, this situation would have never been taken care of. And my number one person to thank is Jerry. I know he's not here. I was super sad that I didn't get to see him at the last meeting, but 100%, this situation would have never been handled if Jerry was not in the meeting and did not hear me. I unfortunately, or fortunately for the public, kind of agree with Mr. Gimple that was just up here. I do feel that this council, the council members here could have taken swifter action and did not do the due diligence that they should have been doing when this situation was brought to them February 2024 from the Sheriff's Department. I saw in the police report that you guys were CC'd old and new on that about city ordinances not being followed at that house. And then coming to my fellow neighbors, coming back in September, and then me again in April. I sure wish moving forward that you guys know how to handle situations like this to keep our community safe, what actions to take sooner, and not allowing this to get out of hand as this did next to my house in our wonderful neighborhood that we live in. So I do truly mean it when I thank you for having this public forum. I do hope to see change within this council, and hopefully moving forward we will have swifter actions with accurate information being handed to you. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Baron Wells?
Good evening. I'm here to talk about the BDM situation, the May 28th meeting as well. I was completely appalled. I listened to the meeting online, and I was shocked at the attack that was made that night. I disagree with a lot of the findings and a few things that I'm going to point out because it sounds like there's a lot of people that, I mean, obviously a lot of people have spoken already, but there's probably more behind me. But a couple of things that I wanted to touch on really quick here is that the investigation that you did was really only one-sided. And a couple of the facts that you brought up about the violations, I think is the way you termed it, failure to pay deed taxes, deliberate concealment of true gift values, completely not true. If you would look at the Department of Revenue website and look at the description about property gifting, this $1.65 that they paid in deed tax is absolutely the fee. That's the amount that you pay when a property is gifted to an individual. So there was no concealment there. That was the way I see recorded deeds in my job all the time, and I see that $1.65 coming across all the time, and that's very, very common. You can look at Minnesota Statute 287.21. It dictates this deed tax be paid on deeds presented for recording. It talks about in the cases where there's no consideration, which is no dollars changing hands, and a pure gift, and the minimum deed tax is paid. At one point, somebody indicated that the investigation found that the lot was worth $40,000 to $50,000 upon transfer. Even if that was a fact, the deed tax would have only been about $132 to $140 on that. So, I mean, the whole thing about them owing hundreds of thousands and a huge taxpayer thing was just insane to me. One other major thing I'll touch on, insinuation that Mundell Jr. continues to pay property tax on $3,000 is completely not true. The lots are valued and taxed exactly the same as other lots in the neighborhood, and you could find this on the Anoka County property lookup information. I actually think he's paying too much in taxes because right now they're not homesteaded, and he would qualify for the homestead status because they're adjacent to his homestead property. So he's paying taxes on that lot higher than, in my opinion, what he should be paying. Lastly, I'm going to touch on another violation that was brought up, avoiding commercial property taxes until this year. That was actually an oversight of your previous property assessor. It's up to the assessor to identify when there's commercial business going on in an exempt property. Many people do not know that exempt properties may have to pay taxes if there's a use outside of exempt uses being done there. So to me, that was no blame on the Mundells. And I will say the taxes that are being applied there now because the commercial use was identified is $625 a year. I have no idea how you could get to hundreds of thousands of dollars with that figure. We all know taxes have gone up a lot in 20 years. So I gotta believe 20 years ago the taxes were maybe $200. I don't know. It's a very, very small amount. I guess I'd love to see this topic come up again in the future. Happy to talk about these things. I do have concerns if this council wants to go to court. As the first speaker said, it's gonna cost this city a lot of money. I'm pretty sure the legal fees in the last couple years with what the new people have brought to the lawyer, tons and tons of hours from what I could see just from watching meetings, and I would just hate to see this go to court and have an outcome where we pay a ton in legal fees and the outcome is exactly what Administrator Look suggested at the 28th meeting, which is come to some kind of compromise. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Fors?
Good evening. My name is Mark Fors. I live at 144 Laurel Road. We're actually on the agenda for a variance request, but I just wanted to kind of speak my mind on this one. And it's not out of anger, it's just want to make sure I'm kind of clear as to what our situation is. So we received a letter on 4/25 of 2025 stating that our house was not in compliance with the setback, which was a shock to us since we've been filling out all the paperwork, required paperwork, getting permits and getting approval. In fact, we actually got our got the certificate of compliance last November, so everything was okay. We submitted all the paperwork, everything else. So I know we're up for a after-the-fact variance approval, but should that be denied, and we were required to bring the home into variance, obviously it would have to get torn down, the slab would have to be moved, septics have to be relocated. We would have to find a place to live while continuing to pay our current mortgage. Just back of the envelope calculations looked at about $1 million, which we don't have the money for. And this is all because of a clerical error by the city building department. So, at any rate, I just wanted to make sure that you were kind of, and then of course, we're kind of up in the air as we're trying to work on finishing up the landscaping and all these kinds of things, like, okay, can we actually call this our home and get on with our life and finish out our retirement years? So, just wanted to let you know that we're hoping for a good outcome. And I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn by talking about an agenda item, but so, any questions? I don't. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Brian Senior.
If you want to fight, I'm going to give you one. With all the lies and bullshit that came from you guys, I am here to say, you want to fight? Come and get me. I have never done anything wrong. Your proposals to do this stuff is ridiculous. You say, well, you have to pay rent for the building. When I paid for that property, that was the payment I gave to occupy that building. Anything else is BS. I want to address Matt Look. When he read 1.4C or E out of my contract, he read the whole paragraph except for the very last line. Why was that line intentionally left out? That line says any such deposit will be offset against the $2,000 accounts to be collected at the time building permits are issued. That means that if you come to me and ask me for money, you're going to offset my $2,000. I gave the city $25,000 before already. I have seen no reduction. Now you're saying I owe $118,000? Well, if I gave that to you, you just have to give it back to me according to my contract. So what kind of bullshit are you people up to? Why couldn't Matt read that last line to the general public? It's unbelievable what's going on in this city. Absolutely unbelievable. And for one thing, I'm not blaming Sue. I think Sue will stand up. She's not going to follow you people. You're ridiculous. You're just a couple of bullies. Go ahead, come after me. We'll see what happens. The slander that you have, it's just unbelievable.
Thank you. Larry Blease.
Hi, I'm Larry Bleasy. I live in the city of East Bethel, 2256 229th Avenue, Northeast East Bethel. I'm here in about the Mundell situation. As far as BDM goes, I am a subcontractor to work on their homes. I have for the better part of 20 years. BDM is a company that you want in your city. And this sounds like a political and personal attack on Brian Jr. because he doesn't conform to your ideals of this city council. He's in opposition of some of your ideas, and we need that. We can't have everybody think the same. You gotta have somebody that opposes. But BDM goes above and beyond on their houses. They don't cut corners when it comes to their material and their workmanship. If you wanna talk crap, look at the stuff that you're building now on Highway 65. Compare the two, the doors, the trim, the cabinets, everything. Those are just gonna be low-income projects down the road. There's great quality to what BDM is doing with their homes, and I'm proud to be working on them. Like I say, it appears to be an attack. I did read something about exceptions to, which you purposely omitted from your charade from the 28th, was that there are exceptions, and one of those exceptions is family, irregardless of being on the council or an elected official. So that's what I got.
Thank you. Marcus Carlson.
I'm Marcia Carson at 151 Maple Road. And I'm here to talk about the variance on the house behind me. Now, this house didn't need a variance because that house could have been attached to the garage and would not have infringed on anybody's setback. I've got some, you guys can look at these if you want. There's some pictures on there. This house has got a roof overhang of about 3.5 feet. I figured this out by there was a bump out on the house and that distance from the fence, and then the house difference from the fence, and subtract the two, and then there's still more overhang, so I'm thinking it looks like 3.5 feet. So that has to be included in the house area when you're looking at where this should be set on the property. So as far as I can tell, they're 19.5 feet into a 25-foot setback. You know, that's 5.5 feet from the fence that they put up, which part of that is on my property too. And it's plugged up on the bottom. There's gonna be no groundwater moving back and forth, and there's a solid panel fence. So they have to put that fence up about 4 inches off the ground in order to have the groundwater. Otherwise, my septic tank or the septic field on the other side of that is never gonna even dry out. So that would, make it fail eventually if there was, because there's that plastic fence on both sides of the property with the septic in the middle. Anyhow, the house is way too close to the fence. You can stand there and touch. It's supposed to be 25 feet. It was no accident. They just decided that's where they wanted it, and they're going to put it there. And nobody tried to even look at the setbacks. And I don't think that several people from the county and the surveyor and the builder and the owner all could not know what the setbacks were on that they're the 25 feet. I tried to get this information and tried to get it from Ehrenberg, and he was real reluctant to tell me anything. And then he went and he got the copy of the survey and he gave it to me. Like, that's going to answer my question. I walked away looking at it, trying to figure out what he's trying to say, because I know he said that some of the setbacks have been decreased, or not the setbacks, the margin on, the setbacks. So anyhow, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And then I write them a letter, and I don't get any response from the letter. And then I had Nick Smith come out, and he brought me because I had called and asked for a survey that had the setbacks marked on it. And he brought me one without the marked on there, and he said, oh, it's right here, the 10 feet. I said, that's not the setback, that's maybe where they were trying to put the house, but that's not a setback. The setback was 25 feet. We did come into the city council meeting on September 23rd, and Aaron was here at that meeting, and he was talking about the setbacks, and I said, wait a minute, can you repeat this, please, just so I'm sure I got this right? You know, you're talking about the setbacks on this beach area, and he said, yes, a 25-foot setback, and he said, we talked about this before, and we're gonna have to talk about it again, which we never did wind up talking about it. But I did talk to the ladies that are taking that place now. Anyhow, none of this is being done right. This, you know, as far as I'm concerned, that the person that built this house, they are the ones that caused this problem, and that makes them not qualifying for the variance. You know, if somebody goes and you put something right where they tell you not to put it, that's against the ordinances. And you know, I didn't do anything. I don't deserve to have this house lurking at me. And if you look in those pictures, you'll see that if you look out my sliding glass door, all you see is there's just house. That's all you see. There used to be nice trees in there. They took out a whole bunch of nice trees. Now that picture that shows the setback or the survey that has a little blue house that I put next to the garage, you can see they wouldn't have had to take out those trees. I know the one by the well had to be taken out, but they didn't need to destroy the place. You know, every bit of living anything is scrubbed off of that piece of property except for one tree. And I don't appreciate it. We keep putting trees in, and I like to, you know, we like the greenery and you know, that natural feel living out here. And we don't like windows looking in on ours. If the house hadn't been moved down that far, maybe wouldn't be looking in our windows, but they are. There's a 2-story house just staring right down on our deck and our private spaces in the back and in our windows, and we don't feel like we have any privacy. And, you know, I tried to get this straightened out last July. Nobody straightened it out, and now we're talking about it. And so I don't know what your answer is going to be to this, but when somebody's going to put a house in and they've already got 2 variances on a garage and putting a house in, wouldn't you think that they would look to see if there was variances that they had to take into consideration? You know, I just don't think anybody did anything, and nobody is paying attention to the rules around here. And if you're not going to go by the rules, then we need to just get rid of the rules. Just not have them, because otherwise I'm expecting them to be going by this. I'm expecting them to try to get compliance out of people that are trying to do something wrong. Instead, they're dragging their feet. They're denying me the information to make my decision on what I'm going to ask for and how we're going to handle this. And then somebody else comes out and they lie about it. And then ignore my letter. You know, how are you going to get anything done like that? And they're still building over there. And now we're getting a nice deck built on back in that setback area still. And it's not right. Didn't have to happen. They had plenty of space to put the house.
Please wrap it up.
And the house could have actually been even separated and put next to the garage, and they could have put the septic in the back. But I think it would have been perfect to add it onto the garage, and it wouldn't go into any setback at all, not even for the septic system. There would still be well, there'd be actually about 18 feet between the septic tanks and that house. And you only have to have 10 feet clearance on the tanks, not on the drain field. So, you know, I can't see that there's anything wrong with that plan. And so I just don't, and I did see something on the computer about what are you going to do when you've already built the house and we're talking about a setback or a variance, and they said you have to treat it like it hasn't happened yet, like you haven't built it yet, and that's the way I'm looking at it. So anyhow, thank you, and why don't you keep those papers there?
Ma'am, it's part of the record.
Okay, thank you.
Gail Stone.
Gail.
Hi, I'm Gail Stone. I'm here from 194 Maple. I'm a neighbor of Marcia Carson's rather. All I can say is that as a neighbor, I'm just shocked. If what Marcia says is true, now she's been complaining about the placement of this house before it was built, during, and after. And it just seems like people in authority are turning a deaf ear on what she's got to say and what apparently are specs. If it's a 25-foot setback, and this house is built like, 6 feet from the lot line or from the fence. From their living room, for the furthest part in their living room, sitting looking out their 8-foot wide sliding glass door, this encompasses the entire thing and more. It doesn't fit in the neighborhood. There are no other 2-story homes close to this area. It's out of place. It doesn't belong there. It looks like a drive-in movie theater. When you're going down the street, if you didn't know any better, you'd think, what is this great expanse of whiteboard out here? It looks like a drive-in movie theater. And I just support Marcia in her efforts to have this removed. It's ridiculous.
Thank you.
That's all I can say.
Brian Jr.
Good evening, council residents. It's been a while since I've spoken at one of these. My name is Brian Mundell, 24159 Pierce Street. I'll try to get through this quick. Mr. Miller brought up and stated I was involved with questionable property transactions concerning the 2 lots beside my house my father gifted me. This is my personal property. I can address this. Let's start off with property transfer. Minnesota State Statute 471.895, certain gifts by interested persons prohibited. Subdivision 3, exceptions B. The prohibitions in this section do not apply if the gift is given by by an interested person who is a member of the family of the recipient, unless the gift is given on behalf of someone who is not a member of that family. The League of Minnesota Cities Handbook for Minnesota Cities Elected Officials and Council Structure and Role, page 10 and 11, state it this way. There are a few limited exceptions to the gift law. For example, the following types of gifts are permitted under the gift law. Gifts between family members, unless the gift is given on behalf of someone who is not a member of that family. Explain the gift is given on behalf of someone who is not a member of the family. To give an example of what that means, if a John Doe had given the property to my father so he could then gift it to me, this did not happen, as you can see from the Anoka County property transfer history that is available to anyone on the Anoka County website. My father gifted me these 2 lots that were his assets, and that is allowable by state statute. Now to the quitclaim deed. On the deed, it states the total consideration for the transfer of property is $3,000 or less. We need to know the state's definition of consideration as it applies to the statement. That's found in Minnesota statutes 287.20, definitions, subdivision 2, consideration. A, consideration means generally the total monetary value that is given in return for conveyance of real property in the state. So what was the purchase property for said property, essentially, what you paid for it? To rephrase the statement on the deed, The purchase price for this transfer of property is $3,000 or less. It has nothing to do with the valuation of the property. So what was the purchase price for this property? I already stated as a gift, which is allowable by state statute. So there was no purchase price. So that establishes why the county put the label $3,000 or less on the deed. But the county needs to collect deed tax. How did they come to $1.65? Let's look at state statute 287.21, imposition of tax, determination of tax. Subdivision 1, determination of tax. A tax is imposed on each deed or instrument by which any real property to the state is granted, assigned, transferred, or otherwise conveyed. The tax applies to the net consideration. That says a tax needs to be paid. And we have the word consideration again, which is the purchase price. Continuing, B, the tax is determined in the following manner. 2, when there's no consideration or when the consideration is $3,000 or less, the tax is $1.65. So if there's no purchase price, the tax due is $1.65. That explains why the county only charged $1.65 on how the county calculated it by state statute. It has nothing to do with the value of the property. Now, who is responsible for this tax deed? Let's look at state statute 287.24, persons liable, subdivision 1, general rule. Any person who grants, assigns, transfers, or conveys any real property by a deed or instrument subject to the tax imposition imposed by section 287.21, imposition, that's the imposition of the tax, the determination of tax, shall be liable for such tax. My father is the one that transferred the deed via quitclaim deed. If he is the one that transferred the property, he is the one responsible for paying that tax, not me. To make the claim that I undervalued my property so I would avoid paying the deed tax or property taxes is completely false, because by state statute, I am not the one paying the deed. I have nothing to do with the deed. The seller pays the deed. All this is established and allowed by state statute. State statutes that apply to everyone in the state and city. There's nothing questionable about it. Mr. Miller stated that the lots I own were undervalued. The deed tax of $1.65 has no relation to the property values or tax values according to the state statute. On the quitclaim deed, it even states certificate of real estate value not required. The real estate value has nothing to do with transferring these properties or calculating the deed tax. To claim that I undervalued my property, that undervalue would show up on my property tax statements that the county sends out. I have all that going back to 2017. It clearly shows the value of my property, and if it was undervalued, it would not line up with other lots in the area. There's another lot in West Renaspen, 24317 Polk, that was sold to another party. My property taxes match that perfectly. My property evaluations match that. Mr. Miller should know that the only way I could attempt to undervalue my property is to appeal at the yearly Board of Appeal and Equalization meeting in April, and would have to be approved by that board. Mr. Miller has presided over 3 of them. Mr. Miller had to have known that's the only way I could undervalue my property, not by a quitclaim deed, yet he claimed otherwise. I don't know what sort of investigation you did that you couldn't find any of these statutes, or if you chose to ignore them. But this should raise some red flags for residents to ask questions about. This is nothing but a smear campaign. If anyone in the audience or anybody watching has questions, I'll be around after the meeting. Come down, ask me them. I'll talk to anyone that's interested in the truth of these matters. I'll end it there. Thank you for the time.
Moving on to 6.0 consent agenda.
I will make a motion to adopt the consent agenda. I'd like to pull item E, F and G, I think.
We have a second,
What was pulled?
E, F, and G.
C. Pull C. Yeah, I want to pull C.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the amended consent agenda?
Oh, which ones were being pulled?
E, F, and G. Oh,
E,
C.
C, E, F, and G. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Aye.
I mean, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, C?
Yeah, I'd like to get that changed. I need what I said verbatim, please, which clearly shows that it was my job to bring out what we found. And what we found were a variety of things. And y'all have your opinion on what was said. Respect that, and I 100% agree with having this put on an agenda for more topic. Because I would like to bring the bills that the city has paid up there. I would like to show that the taxpayers have forked out their own tax dollars. I would like to make that a point and go through that. And that's pretty much where I'd like to leave it right now with that. But I definitely would like that table till we get it right. And I have no problem bringing any of the information that was used to compile this. And we'll see who was paying what bills up there.
You want to make your motion to table?
I'd like to make a motion to table it, C until it comes back verbatim.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. E?
E is a resignation of Catherine from the Economic Development Authority, and I just want to thank Catherine so much for serving, and it was so great getting to know her. The little bit that I did, she had good ideas and great comments at all of those meetings, and I appreciate her service. And did anybody else have anything on E? With that, I'll make a motion to approve item E on the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. F?
And F is declaring a vacancy and appointing a new EDA commissioner, and I'm just going to make a motion to approve that because I am having a brain block on what I wanted to say about it. So I'll make a motion to approve item F on the consent agenda.
A motion, second?
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. G?
And G is appointment of planning commission candidates, and I am just wondering, were there any other applicants other than the two that the planning commission, it was just those two? I would like to see in the future their applications and resumes and stuff come before the council, because I don't know anything about them, and I'd like to see who they've selected. With that, I will make a motion to approve item G on the consent agenda.
One second.
Have a motion and a second for item G, all those in favor?
Aye.
Discussion. We
One
don't discuss anymore?
Discussion.
Okay, we've talked about, on the planning commission, reducing the 7 members to 5. So,
EDA.
no, it's planning also, pay attention. So then, we've talked about that before too. So.
When did we
I
talk
would,
about it?
I don't know where you were.
What
but we were
council
here.
meeting did we talk about it?
I don't know what meeting it was, but we were talking about that already at one time. So I was at the planning meeting, and Christina Pagnac showed up and she did her interview. She did a great job. Eldon was a no-show. I don't know why he wasn't there, but for me to approve Christina, I have no problem with that. But I'd like on record that if we decide that we're gonna reduce it to 5 members, that her term would end at that time. And also I'd like to say that, I don't know if we can make a motion or whatever, but I'd say no to Eldon. So I don't know how we wanna do that.
There's already a motion made and seconded.
So we need to change it then.
I'll withdraw my motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Christina Pagnac as one of the planning commissioners. And in my motion, I deny Eldon as the second choice.
Do you have reasoning for
We have
denying?
plenty of reasoning, actually, but that's my opinion right now. And for, like I say, I want on record also, if we decide to go to 5, that her commission would end before it's final.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, perhaps the attorney can weigh in on this. I think once the appointment is made, they have a term that unless they resign would need to be completed if they were switched from 7 to 5.
That is true, but you can also, this body has the ability to appoint for a lesser term than the customary term. So you could do it that way.
Can you put a stipulation in there where it says, upon modification of the members of the planning commission, quantity, excuse my bad grammar there, but this would terminate this position early? Can you put a clause in there like that?
Yes, what I believe I heard Councilmember Smith say is that the term would be the lesser of either the standard term or the reduction of the commission from 7 to 5. So that way, if the reduction did not occur until the initial term, the standard term had occurred, then obviously the individual would fill out that full term. If the reduction from 7 to 5 occurred before, then that individual would have obviously that shorter term period. Did I understand you correctly,
On that part of
Councilmember?
it, yeah. But I think
Okay.
I'm gonna withdraw my motion. I'm gonna make it easier, so it's a lot not confusing. I'll make a motion to approve Christina Pagnac onto the planning commission.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other further discussion?
Well, I just would like to see their resumes and the application, and I'll go back and watch the interview from the planning commission, because I haven't had a chance to watch that, because I need to base my own opinion on this. But for right now, I agree, and he can reapply, or we can bring him up again at a future meeting.
I can change my motion again if you'd like. Would you just like to table this until you have more time to research and get the information that we need? That way that'll be easier.
That probably would be the best motion out there right now.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion. I'll make a new motion to table this planning commission appointments.
You would table it till the next city council meeting?
Yes.
Perfect.
So that's a motion. We need a second.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None being heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Planning, item 1.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. This is a request for a site plan conditional use permit and 4 variances for exterior storage on a property at 21476 Johnson Street. The application from Dan McConnell is for D&D to operate their business out of the existing building. They've purchased the property and would like to expand to the north of the building for exterior storage and equipment. The property on the screen is Zone B3, Highway Commercial, and you could see on the screen the property has the office on the south side of the property, and the north side is where they'd like the exterior storage. Oh, there's the screen. Okay, so that's good. You can go to the next one. I was like trying to read the slide behind me. So the site plan is required because they're changing the site to add exterior storage. The conditional use permit is for exterior storage accessory to the principal use on site. And then there are 4 variances to allow storage in the front yard, to allow exterior storage more than 2 times the square footage of the principal building, to allow a 6-foot fence in the front yard, and to allow a chain link fence where the ordinance requires the screening fence be either masonry block or wood. Next slide. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on May 27th, and other than the applicant, there was no one present to speak. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of variances 1, 3, and 4. They did not forward an recommendation on variance number 2. There was a significant amount of discussion on that, and the Planning Commission felt that variance wasn't needed. Staff does not believe it's not needed. We've consulted with the city attorney. The variance is needed for the proposal submitted by the applicant. Next slide. So again, this image just is in your packet. It shows you how limited the rear yard would be if they complied with the code. The storage area is the darker area on the north side. Next slide. And we did talk about at the Planning Commission perhaps moving the fence line to align with the curb line, that red line there, which would pull it back a little bit from the street. Planning Commission did not recommend a change. Next slide. So we have prepared a resolution approving the site plan conditional use permit and all 4 variances, which I believe was the intent of the Planning Commission, although to be clear, they did not forward a recommendation on number 2. You have the option to approve the draft resolution as forwarded or make modifications to 1 or more of the variance requests. With that, Mr. Mayor, council members, happy to answer any questions.
I would make a motion to approve the draft version as presented and move forward.
Resolution. This resolution, the number on it is not
See which
completed. It's 2025-XX. Can you tell me what that exact number is supposed to be?
Well, the previous resolution was 32. Would it be 33?
I believe it's 33 unless it's already currently used. Trying to get to that here.
So to restate it, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2025-XX as to be determined at a future time, possibly 33. But to specify, it is a resolution approving. Okay, it looks to be resolution 33 from the mayor's copy. So a resolution approving a site plan and granting a conditional use permit and granting 4 variances from the zoning ordinance for exterior storage on a property located at 21476 Johnson Street Northeast, pin 083323340005, to be exact.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard, motion passes.
Sweet.
Item 2 on 7-0.
Yes, item 2 is a concept plan review for a subdivision north of 217th Avenue Northeast. Subdivision was applied for by Tom Carlisle of Sherco Construction. It is for a 3-lot subdivision called Cliffs Anderson Acres. It is on the north side of 217th Avenue Northeast. To the east is Linwood Township. To the west is rural residential land. And to the north is the Gordy Mickelson Wildlife Management Area. The property is zoned and guided rural residential. It is within the significant natural environmental area overlay. It is 19.44 acres, and each proposed lot in this 3-lot subdivision is approximately 6.5 acres. The applicant is requesting feedback on the concept plan before applying for a rezoning, PUD preliminary plan, and preliminary plat. Due to the fact that this parcel is in that significant natural environmental overlay, a PUD is required as part of the development standards outlined in that section of our code. The draft resolution does note that this concept plan review would not only be a subdivision concept plan review, but would also be a concept plan review for that PUD plan. The city's discretion in approving or denying a concept plan is based on whether the proposed subdivision meets the development standards outlined in the code and the comprehensive plan. Staff has found that the proposed subdivision complies with the development standards, such as pertaining to lot size and setbacks, established within the city code, and does not increase the overall average density of the rural residential district beyond what is allowed in the comprehensive plan, though the lots in this subdivision do not meet the 1 unit per 10 acres standard established in our comp plan. The overall density, which is what the language of our comp plan has, is below that one unit per 10 acres, and this is something that city staff will continue to evaluate as subdivision applications come in the future. This is a quick view at the sketch plan that was submitted as part of the application materials. As you can see, there are 3 lots. They're about equal in size, and they are north of 217th Avenue. The Planning Commission reviewed this application and held a public hearing at the May 27th meeting. A neighboring property owner spoke in support of the subdivision request. The applicant and his surveyor were also present at the meeting to answer questions from the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval of the subdivision and PUD concept plan. The recommendation from the Planning Commission was to move to adopt the draft resolution approving the subdivision and PUD concept plan for Cliffs Anderson Acres. The council can also modify the draft resolution as you see fit, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2025-34, resolution approving the concept plan of Cliffs Anderson Acres for property legally described as, it's a very long description, it's stated in the resolution.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Grace, there's some discussion about the 1 in 10 ratio. Where did we end up with that?
Yes, after the Planning Commission meeting, staff met with our city attorney to go over the language of the comprehensive plan and look at the subdivision request here. We found that it seems the city has been interpreting during past subdivision requests that 1 in 10 standard applied to the rural residential district as a whole, not just each individual subdivision. So due to the precedence that was set during previous subdivision requests, that is the interpretation that we are moving forward with as staff. Mr. Larson, please correct me if there's anything else there.
That sounds like the right answer, so.
What does that mean?
Mayor, council member, I appreciate the affirmation there. And if I could weigh in, and I'm sorry to cut you off, council member, but I also want to just underscore that approval of this concept plan and the resolution doesn't bind the city to the plan, does not bind the city to the subdivision. What it is it's just signaling to the developer that the overall concept meets with the kind of general consensus of the council, so that way they can have some assurance that their continued investment, which would then start to be somewhat significant and so forth, hopefully will actually have a return on the investment.
So what is the 1 in 10 thing? I'm
That-
confused.
Grace, do you want to explain it?
Yes, so our comprehensive plan establishes a density standard for each of our land use categories. In the rural residential category, that density standard is 1 unit per 10 acres. There are different standards for different land use categories, but it's 1 in 10 there. Our city code, on the other hand, does say that the standard for rural residential, the standard density is 1 unit for 2.5 acres. So there's a difference there, which is something that city staff will be reviewing as we revise the code going forward. But that was a point of confusion, which we clarified with the city attorney.
Yeah, because I was a little concerned when I was reading that they were all around 2 acres, 2-acre lots, and I thought we were supposed to have 2.5 acre lots in this area, and so that was going to be my question. And my other question is the park fees. They're not going to put in a park, but did we increase our park fees, or what are our park fees now?
It's $2,000 a lot.
2,000 a lot, because weren't we supposed to be increasing those?
Actually, didn't we decrease them a little bit? The last discussion?
I don't recall that we have.
Okay.
No, it was 2004 or 5 years ago when I was on council before. And I think that needs to be a discussion in the future.
Okay, any further discussion? A motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard, motion passes. Item 3.
This is a variance request for 3 different variances for property at 138 Laurel Road Northeast. These variances are for a single-car garage, impervious surface coverage, and metal siding. This property is located at 138 Laurel Road Northeast. It's zoned Coon Lake Residential and guided Coon Lake. As you can see in that image, Coon Lake is to the north of this property. It is within the Shoreland Overlay District due to its proximity to the lake. It's 2.7 acres. It is a through lot, so there are 60.5 feet of frontage to the west and another 60.5 feet of frontage to the east. As you can see, it's kind of S-shaped. The applicant is proposing to build a single-family home on the property. The variance requests, there are 3 of them, are first to allow a 12 by 34 foot single car garage. City code requires that garages be 24 by 24 feet, so this is a significant reduction in the width of the garage, but it is there is significant depth to this garage beyond what's required by the code. The second variance is to allow impervious surface coverage of 27.6% of the lot area. Currently within the Shoreland Overlay District, impervious surface is limited to 25% of the lot area, so this is a 2.6% overage. The third variance is to allow metal siding on a proposed residential structure. City code requires that the exterior walls of a single-family residence be similar in appearance to normal wood, vinyl siding, or masonry. Included in the packet was an image or several images of the siding that the applicant is proposing to use. It is called True Log siding, and it is made to look like wooden siding. Because this is 3 separate variances, I do want to emphasize that approval of one variance does not require the approval of another variance, and staff has supplied findings of fact for each of the variances, approval and denial. The variances are held to a standard called the practical difficulties test. I'm sure you've heard this before. The first standard that a variance must be held to is that the request is reasonable, that the property owner is looking to use their land in a way that makes sense. The second standard is that the request is due to unique circumstances on the property that are not caused by the landowner. So this is often something to do with the land, such as the slope of the land, a significant tree, the location of a septic system, something like that. And the third is that the variance, if approved, will not have a negative impact on neighborhood character. On the screen is a survey of the land. There is an existing garage, and there is also to the east an existing shed, and then also connected to that shed is a canopy overhang, which is contributing to some of the impervious surface on that property. You can also see the proposed cabin and the garage on that survey. The Planning Commission reviewed this request at the May 27th meeting. The applicant's daughter spoke on his behalf, and nobody else was present to speak on this request. The Planning Commission voted 3-2 to recommend approval of all 3 variances. 2 of the commissioners found that the metal siding variance did not meet the uniqueness test required for granting a variance, and another commissioner found that the impervious surface variance did not meet the uniqueness standard required. From the recommendation of the Planning Commission, they recommend that City Council moves to adopt the draft resolution approving the 3 variances for 138 Laurel Road Northeast. The Council can modify the draft resolution to deny some or all of the variances. Additionally, an alternative draft resolution for the denial of these variances has been included. Happy to answer any questions.
I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-35, a resolution granting variances from Section 22.7 Subdivision V for impervious surface coverage and from for all of this located at 138 Laurel Road, PIN number 36-33-23-12-0142. Described in the packet.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Motion passes. Item 4.
This next item is for 2 variances, one for a rear yard setback and another for impervious surface coverage at 144 Laurel Road Northeast. This variance was applied for by Mark Fors, who lives at 144 Laurel Road Northeast. The property is zoned Coon Lake Residential and guided Coon Lake. Coon Lake, again, is seen to the north on this image. The property is within the Shoreland Overlay District due to its proximity to the lake. The property is 0.22 acres. This is a bit of a unique variance. It's an after-the-fact variance, as this applicant was issued a building permit for the structure, his single-family home, on this site in April of 2024, and a certificate of occupancy was issued towards the end of 2024 for this home. This was brought to the attention of city staff in March of this year, and has been something that we have been working with the property owner to address since. This was the result of a clerical error. We all hope to avoid those, but unfortunately this did occur. And the reason this is before you today is because without a variance, the homeowner is not granted the same protections as someone who had built with a variance or as a structure that is a legal non-conforming use would be granted. So if this homeowner goes to sell his home, or his home gets significantly damaged and he needs to apply for a building permit to repair it, there would be issues with that. He would not be able to repair his home. He may encounter issues when selling or refinancing. So that's why this is before you today. The requested variances are, first, a variance to allow a rear yard setback of 9.3 feet. City code requires a rear yard setback of 25 feet within the zoning district. So this is a reduction of 15.7 feet of that rear yard setback. The second variance is to allow an impervious surface coverage of 25.09% of the lot area. Again, in the zoning district, the limit on impervious surface is 25%. So this is a 0.09% overage. When staff did the math, we found that this is 9 feet, so 9 extra feet of impervious surface on this lot. Again, approval of one of these variances does not require the approval of the other, and findings of fact have been provided for approval and denial of each of these variances in the packet. Similar to the last variance, there are those three standards that must be met as practical difficulties in order to grant this variance. The first is that the request is reasonable, the second is that it is due to unique circumstances, and the third is that it does not have a negative impact on neighborhood character. As you can see on the right side of the screen, this is the as-built for the property. So there is the home, there is an existing garage to the north of it, and then the septic system is to the west of it, and then the well is at the north. So that is what is going on that land right now. Oops. There we go. Planning Commission held a public hearing on May 27th to review this variance request. One neighbor spoke in opposition of the request. The Planning Commission did vote 5-0 to recommend approval of both variances. On the recommendation of the Planning Commission, the City Council can move to adopt the draft resolution approving the two variances for 144 Laurel Road Northeast. The Council can also modify the draft resolutions, and an alternative draft resolution for denial has been included in the packet as well. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I know you weren't here, but do you know how they got a certificate of occupancy? Now, my history with the city is we built a huge shed, and every step of the way we had to have somebody come. We had to stake it out. Then to get approval to pour the cement, we had to pour the cement. They had to come in. I mean, every step somebody had to come. How did they miss all of this? I don't understand. And I can't see the homeowner being punished for something that the city really screwed up on.
Mr. Mayor and council members, that's a mystery to us as well. So we don't have a real good answer for you on that.
Well, do we have the names of the people who went there? Did we go ask them what happened with this? Did steps get missed? I mean, there needs to be some accountability.
Understood.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? None being heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Motion passes.
Was there a motion on that last one? I'm trying to recall.
Did you make the motion? Or did you go right into discussion?
I don't know. I'll make a.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I was thinking.
just redo it, right?
I'll make a motion approving resolution number 2025-3036, granting variances from section 51-7 subdivision B for the coverage of 25.09% on property located at 144 Laurel Drive, PIN number 36-33-23-12-0064. Need a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Item 5.
This item is a final plat approval for the final plat of Hidden Prairie. This final plat application was filed by TH Construction of Anoka for a subdivision off of East Bethel Boulevard. That would be 17 buildable lots. The lot as it is currently or the two lots as they are currently 44 acres approximately. The surrounding properties are guided and zoned rural residential, as is the property in question here. This is a quick view at the plat. There are 17 buildable lots. To the east is East Bethel Boulevard. This application first went through the City Council as a concept plan on August 14th of 2023. Then in February of 2024, the City Council approved the preliminary plat for Hidden Prairie. The preliminary plat was approved with several conditions that needed to be satisfied prior to the submission of the final plat for approval. The city has been working with the applicants since that preliminary plat approval to resolve those conditions. On April 23, 2025, the city received a final plat application and supporting materials for Hidden Prairie. When reviewing a final plat, the City Council's discretion is limited to whether the proposed plat meets the standards outlined in the city's subdivision and zoning ordinance. If it meets those standards, the city must approve the plat. Staff has found that the final plat request does meet the standards, such as for minimum lot size, right-of-way, and density, established within the code, and matches the preliminary plat previously approved by the city. The conditions noted in the preliminary plat have been addressed by the developer. These conditions include comments made by Anoka County's Highway Department, the city engineer, and a grading agreement that was required with a neighboring landowner. A development agreement has not yet been drafted, but will be drafted for execution by the city and developer prior to the final plat recording with Anoka County. The recommendation is to move to adopt the draft resolution approving the final plat for Hidden Prairie. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to adopt the resolution approving the final plat for Hidden Prairie, a subdivision located at PID 22, 33, 23, 33, 0005 and 22, 33, 23, 34, 0006. That resolution number being 2025-37.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any further discussion? None being heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Motion passes. Go to item 8G. City Administrator.
Mr. Mayor and Council, the City of East Bethel has 9 full-time employees, 8 public works maintenance technicians, and 1 building inspector that are represented by Minnesota Public Employees Association, MPEA. And they currently had a labor agreement that's going to be expiring here on December 31st, 25. And on the February 10th council meeting, City Council instructed myself to begin contract negotiations with MPEA for labor agreement for a term of January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2028. And I did that. We met with them on April 22nd, a series of meetings, and went into our closed session on the last meeting, and met with our personnel committee as well, and came out with a contract that they voted to approve, that you'll see attached here. And the red lines in this contract are the changes that are being proposed. What I will say is that we were fortunate to have a long-term contract, a 3-year contract on the prior agreement. What was unique about that was the beginning of the contract, inflation was reasonable. Middle of the contract, inflation shot through the roof, and tail end of the contract, where we're at today, is back to reasonable again. A lot of our neighboring communities and cities maybe weren't so lucky to have long-term contracts and negotiated some of their contracts in the middle or during the height of the inflation. And so when I did an analysis on just the neighboring cities to us, the Oak Groves, the Ham Lakes, the St. Francis, asked them, what do you pay for these jobs, these specific jobs? And our jobs are a little bit different. For example, a public works employee here that has a water license is different than a public works employee at Oak Grove because they don't have city sewer and water over there. So there's a little bit of difference there, but what we found primarily was we were about 10% lower in salaries. What does that mean? Well, essentially, if you are a skilled employee, and we have a lot of them, and I want to say first off that of the 9 employees that we're speaking of, and really all of our employees, we're a small team, and we're a good team. We wear a lot of hats, and we get the job done. And so, so losing people is a challenge, and we've had about a 20-some% turnover in the last year and a half. which sounds like a huge number, but when you're a small team, that really can represent 2 or 3 people essentially. And what happens then is we are faced with not only the same workload, but then training in a new person and trying to get them up to speed, and there's challenges associated with that. So part of our goal here is to, and I think everyone is dealing with this right now in terms of workforce, it's attraction and retention, plain and simple. To retrain is costly, or to rather train is costly. And then if they once become trained, they move on to another community, some other community reaps the benefits of that training. So what you'll see in this contract here is less than was requested by the union. They came in with some pretty aggressive demands, and we were able to talk them down on that. But I want to kind of preface this by saying that on average, if you look back through the increases that have been given to employees, it's been 3% on average every single year. And what we're proposing is 8% this year and 3% for the next 2 years after that. If you take 3 from 8, it's really a 5% wage correction. 5% has me a little concerned that you still have a 5% delta essentially with your neighboring communities if they give a reasonable raise on there, in which fully anticipate that they will on account of the fact that workforce is what it is right now. It's a challenge all the way around. So what we're trying to do is combine a little bit of wage correction with this union contract and retain our people. And I will say that Public Works is probably one of the first areas where you'll get phone calls. Took out my mailbox, didn't plow my cul-de-sac, you get all the calls, right? And really, we don't get a lot of calls from these folks because they do a tremendous job. When it comes to the water system that we have, that's the quickest way to get into the paper if they mess that up. And we haven't been in the paper on that, so knock on wood, that's great. So they have a lot on their plate. We brought on the ice arena as well, and that is, we're getting nothing but glowing remarks from the hockey associations, the way it's being run right now, and so by and large, I can say that that we have excellent people working for us, and I think that given everything involved, I think this is a responsible contract. Stand for questions.
I appreciate the work everybody did on it. I think our employees are absolutely deserving of this because I know we can be short-staffed with the growing community that we have. Do we need a motion on this, or
Yes.
is this ready for a motion?
Yep.
So I'll make a motion to approve the labor agreement between City of East Bethel and Minnesota Public Employee Associations, effective January 1, 2026 through December 31st, 2028.
One second.
Having a motion and a second, any further discussion? None being heard, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard, motion passes. Staff report.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to give you a couple of updates here. We, in the last council meeting, we talked about, or the last EDA meeting, rather, we talked about the property of 1347 Sims Road, 1.8 acres on the corner of Sims and Highway 65. We have a signed letter of intent to purchase, and we currently have Mr. Larson working on a draft purchase agreement. And we're going through our due diligence at this point of phase 1, possible phase 2, and selecting kind of all the necessary work to be done on that property to make sure that we're protected. I contacted the county, specifically the county, because, and looked at setbacks from MnDOT as well, and the mayor, you wanted me to check in on that. What I will tell you about the county is they like to hold their cards pretty close, and depending on the project that goes in, depends on their answer. So far, I know Joe pretty well, and I'll work him pretty hard if he tries to come up with some trouble for us, but Joe McPherson. But I believe, given some of the work that we're going to be doing here in terms of water plants and water towers and connecting the school, that this will become a property that would be instrumental in that work in that area. And we've talked about fire stations. I don't know, maybe that'd be a good spot for it. Could be a good retail spot as well. But at any rate, just want to give you an update on that the letter of intent to purchase is kind of your lowest agreement maybe. And it gets more serious going out here, but we'll definitely keep you updated on those purchase agreements as they become available. And the other thing is on June 25th through the 27th, the League of Minnesota Cities has their annual conference in Duluth. Some of you are registered for that. Just want to remind you of that. And it's a good opportunity to learn the latest rules that apply to cities. And they generally try and provide some specificity to those rules. And it's a valuable opportunity to network with other elected officials as well. And ask vendors and that some of the things. I know we talked today about some of the computer upgrades and that sort of thing we might be looking at. Every vendor known to man will be there that offers that. So it'll be a good opportunity to kind of chat through that and understand some of those challenges. So at any rate, that's all I have for an update, unless there are questions.
Council reports.
Matt, I got a question for you. Tonight, Mark Gimple says that he's basically given us more information on the IUP. Do we have anything on that? I mean, he made it sound like they have proof that their IUP is still good for 6 horses.
Well, I think there was a lot of statements made this evening. I understand his frustration. I definitely understand his frustration. A lot of his statements were pretty serious, but I think I will have maybe the attorney respond to this question, because all of this, and I want everyone to have confidence in knowing that that this issue has been vetted by our attorneys. We've talked this through. It isn't a flippant decision. We're not withholding information. None of the claims made are true. But that being said, I do understand his frustration. So,
Mayor, council members, with respect to Gimples and the IUP with respect to horses, there was an initial IUP that was issued for 6 horses. Then the Gimples ceased to use their particular property for horses. Regardless of even if they had ceased to use, they came back and asked for an IUP for 2 horses. Once they did that for the same subject matter, the same use and so forth, that second IUP basically cancels out the prior one. But even if that prior one had been in full legal force and effect, but it had ceased, it was no longer in legal force and effect. So it was canceled one of 2 ways or both ways. And just to underscore this, you can't just be stacking your IUPs and saying, okay, I asked for 6 horses, now I ask for 2, and I get another 2 and start adding them up. No. How many horses are you going to have on your property? Well, they asked for 2. I believe the Gimples, if they were still here, regardless if they're not, I did look at, the minutes for last council meeting. You revoked, but you also provided them an opportunity to resubmit an IUP, so that way this governing body could actually look at the current situation and determine what is the appropriate number of horses and the conditions, if any. I want to underscore, this is an interim use permit. It is not permanent, it is interim, and there are interim as far as interim means that there is a defined length of time. It is not permanent, it's interim, and there are interim conditions. The Gimpels seem to be operating that somehow there's some permanency there. Regardless, the Gimpels will have an opportunity to resubmit and for this body to determine what would be an appropriate IUP for horses on their property.
If I can clarify too, Mr. Gimpel had indicated that he's at odds with me. I am not at odds with the Gimpels at all, and I don't mean to make light of this, but I really have no horse in this race at all. My position on the matter is we have conditions in IUPs, we extend those IUPs with agreement on those conditions, and those conditions must be followed. And if they're not followed, there's a process for trying to get that changed. You come back before the governing body and say, you know, I need more, or I need this, or I need that. There's a process, and it must be followed. And we cannot have people deciding, I don't like my conditions, I'm gonna go about my, you know, doing whatever I want. And I think at that point, we have to address it, and we did, so.
Thanks for clarifying that, because I mean, he said that he has information, but I wanted to make sure that we have all of ours. Thank you.
Makes sense, and the Gimpels will have an opportunity to resubmit and provide any and all information they believe is appropriate.
So I just wanted to, I had a few residents call and leave some messages, and I never got back to them, and I just want to make a public apology because I've been out of town, in town, out of town, and it's just been really hectic traveling last couple of weeks, so I will get back to these residents as soon as things get a little organized in my life. I do want to bring up the park fees again, and I also, because right now I think $2,000 is crazy. You can't fix a park for $2,000 anymore. But I also think that we don't have enough parks. I think some of our parks are too far apart. So if we're getting a park down off of East Bethel Boulevard and they have to drive to Booster or to the little area I live in, that park, or up to Menards or Lake or someplace else, and they can't put their child in a stroller and walk to a park, I think if they're living on a suburban type street, because if they have to walk on Durant Street or East Bethel Boulevard or something like that, that's not safe for any child, any dog, anything. So I think I know we have a lot of parks, but if we're getting so many more developments, we need some more parks. This fees in lieu of park is not right. So I think we need to talk about that. I also need some direction in if we want to change, if I want to change the ordinance on fencing or acreage, new development acreage, I'd like direction on where we have to go with that. If you want me to look at an ordinance and say, okay, I think it should say this, or if you guys want our planning people to come forward with ideas, I'd like that, because I feel like, well, I want to do this, I ran on doing this, but I don't know where to go for that. So I need some direction on that. So, and that's all I've got.
Mr. Mayor and council members, with regards to changing ordinances, if you want to let us know kind of what your goals are and ideas, bring it to a work session. We'll put it on the agenda. We can talk through it. We can work with Kendra or Grace in terms of you know, seeing what the current ordinance is, what sort of changes would be needed. Then it's got to go through the planning and zoning, public process, and everything else. And it takes a little while. The barn minimum, I know Councilmember Miller is still upset about, but that's coming. It's absolutely coming. But it does take a little time. So it's not a snap your fingers and it's done type of thing. And but we can certainly get it addressed, get a consensus in a work session, and move on from there. So
Thank you.
I want to talk for a brief second tonight. What was presented in a work meeting a couple weeks ago was fact. Since 2004, the city has been covering all the extra bills involved in this business. The city has been. It's our job to bring this to the public attention. It was brought to the public attention that this business in a residential unit or district was operating underneath the city's dollars for paying electric, water, gas, everything, okay? That is a fact. I am never going to agree with city tax dollars being spent in any way, shape, or form. Maybe in a short-term or temporary agreement, but for 2 decades, we're talking money out of our residents' pockets. Now, people might be appalled and say that's an attack. I'm sorry you don't agree with me when it comes to your tax dollars being spent on certain items. In real estate, consideration refers to the value exchange between the parties in a transaction making the contract legally binding. It is the price paid for property or the promise to perform certain actions in exchange for that property. That could draw a red flag when your dad owns a development company and you're on city council. That's a definition. It may or may not, let me talk please, I've let everyone talk tonight, okay? It's important to know where your tax dollars are actually going. Half the city, or more than half, did not know that their money was being spent in this way. It wasn't fair, and it's never going to be fair when that happens to a city. You challenged me to come get you. I never challenge you, senior, but I will make a challenge to you. I challenge you to pay the bills that your business inquires. Nothing more, nothing less. That's it. I don't know how this happened, why it happened, but we're not putting it underneath the table here. We're not afraid to bring it out in the open. And that's what we've done. I mean, I think 100% we should have this on the agenda. We'll bring the extra bills numbers. We'll bring the other numbers. Your commercial taxes, that's your business. I'm not even going to get into that. That just was brought up. But I think the city and county and schools got screwed because of it. There's a lot of things you've done here that were brought to the attention, in my opinion, need to be discussed. And that's what I said. They need to be discussed. And hopefully we will. We'll get a resolution to this and be done with it once and for all. But to have city tax dollars being spent to pay your electric bill or any other bill for that matter is wrong. There's nothing you can explain to me why tax dollars need to pay for the bills in your business. That's all I have.
Any other discussion?
Make motion to adjourn.
Have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.